Hi Curslings. Today we are back with a quick video on this mad mama because we need to address the elephant in the room, so to speak, specifically this. But before we get into Onora's nonsense, there's a TikTok that this mad mama posted earlier today that we need to discuss first. Now for context, Veronica likes to repost her How I Became a Mom at 14 origin story, her flavor of the story of us thing that mommy vloggers, especially those with super big families, tend to do.
We are Josh and Alicia Doherty. After 9 years of infertility, we decided to adopt from foster care.
This constant reposting is done primarily to stimulate the TikTok algorithm, and it's one of the ways that mommy vloggers build their audience, because everyone loves an origin story, right? And in this mad mama's case, her origin story isn't conventional.
I got pregnant at just 14 years old. I spent the end of 8th grade and the beginning of 9th grade pregnant.
Instead of adopting a bunch of kids like Alicia Doherty or Heather Bell and the savior complex that comes with that, or, having fertility issues or whatever, Veronica's flavor, which, if I had to guess, is probably pumpkin spice, is that she's a teen mom who now has 12 kids.
I'm Veronica, aka This Mad Mama. I'm 38 years old and I have 12 biological offspring.
12 biological kids, which I could not, besties, just no thanks. Now, Veronica being a teen mom honestly isn't really that big of a deal. Back in 2000, yeah. Oh, it would have been. Neighbors at the church luncheon definitely clutched their pearls when that little nugget of gossip came up. But teen pregnancy also wasn't that uncommon back in the early 2000s, at least compared to now, where statistically those numbers have been consistently and steadily declining. And as someone who was a teenager in the 2000s, because Veronica's like 3 years older than me, my childhood friend was also a teen mom. She was 15 when she got pregnant. We're talking in small town Ontario, super Christian, super conservative community, in a really small high school. It was hell, and she got ostracized. And to avoid people staring and whispering and, being garbage, she would hide in the guidance counselor's office. And I used to go eat my lunch with her and just keep her company because she was alone. So I know through my friend and the community that I grew up in that being put into a position like being pregnant at the age of 14 is hard and so lonely. So I truly do not think that Veronica is glorifying teen pregnancy. If anything, I think that she's been working her way through her trauma and mental health issues and using her platform as a way to do that. Is she doing it well? No. Could she benefit from a licensed professional? Yes, heck yes. But you know what? So could Anora. If we're gonna lay it all our cards out on the table here, I think we all could benefit from some licensed fucking professionals. Now, the TikTok that Veronica posted earlier today was made in response to a growing chorus of voices in her comment section on her Snark subreddit, which she definitely doesn't read. And I would also imagine other creators who are all saying the same thing, that she's a victim, that she was groomed, and, according to Anora, and only Anora, glorifying teen pregnancy and somehow SA. I feel stupid just saying it. Let's watch.
I got pregnant in middle school at 14 years old. The father was 18. So why do I always say he didn't groom me? Rewind to when I met him when I was 12 years old. A friend of mine invited me to go meet her friends at their house. He didn't like me at all. He called me Flea. He didn't want anything to do with me. I would sit outside his house and wait for him to come out and take pictures, or I would go in his room while he was sleeping and draw pictures of him. I'd write him poems. I stalked the hell out of this man. He finally agreed to go out with me, and immediately we got pregnant. We had already broken up before we knew, though, and he didn't want to be together anymore, so my psycho ass even tried to come up with a way to manipulate him to get back together with me. This note is obviously very, very cringe. I just wanted to demonstrate just how crazy I was when I was 14. So I had the baby at 14, which was not easy. I had to have a tutor just so that I could finish 9th grade. Because of the age gap, there was a restraining order in place. My ex wasn't even allowed to come near me. But that did not stop my psycho little ass from trying to be with him anyways. I almost stabbed a girl once because she was holding hands with him. As far as I was concerned, I wanted him, therefore he was mine. And we did get married and have another child together, but obviously the relationship didn't last. I was unhinged, he was abusive, and the whole thing was toxic and doomed from the start. I'm not saying he was a good person, I'm just saying I wasn't groomed.
Bizarrely, or maybe not so bizarrely, this story really reminded me of Foodie Beauty. Specifically how Veronica pursued her ex as a young teenage girl echoed similar stories that Chantel has told her own audience, including sleeping with an adult man, although in Chantel's case, if I recall correctly, it was a 40-year-old man and not an 18-year-old. And like Chantel, Veronica insists that she was the aggressor. She pursued the adult of the situation. She was the, quote, psycho.
But that did not stop my psycho little ass from trying to be with him anyway.
And therefore, all the blame should fall squarely onto her. And it's here where the dissonance between Veronica and her audience begins. Also, I believe in past tellings of her story, Veronica actually admitted to being 13 when she got pregnant and 14 when she had Victoria. In this version, she admits to becoming obsessed with her ex at 12.
Rewind to when I met him when I was 12 years old.
So, just like Foodie Beauty, Veronica is also apparently super big on technical truths. Anyway, the issue that Veronica is failing to understand in her audience's objection to her insistence that she was the aggressor is that her ex was in a position of power.
The father was 18.
By virtue of that alone, Veronica can't be the aggressor in this situation because he was the adult. He was 4 years older than her. Things only progressed between them because he allowed it.
He finally agreed to go out with me, and immediately we got pregnant. We had already broken up before we knew, though.
And he was sure as hell old enough to know better. That's just, I think, that's just universally agreed by everyone except for Veronica. She's the only one who's like, nah, it's fine, it's fine. Now, obviously, that 4-year age gap closes as you age, right? What is a 4-year difference in your 20s versus your 30s or your 40s or 50s and so on? But in your teens, when your brain is still developing, especially when you maybe just hit puberty, 4 years is the Atlantic Ocean. So Veronica can say until she's blue in the face that her ex did not groom her. She can even tell us to look up the definition, her favorite comeback, by the way, but it doesn't change anything because he still allowed her to throw herself at him. He apparently allowed her to sneak into his home and draw him while he's sleeping.
I would sit outside his house and wait for him to come out and take pictures, or I would go in his room while he was sleeping and draw pictures of him. I'd write him poems. I stalked the hell out of this man.
Which, by the way, what? What? Oh, and the definition of sexual grooming, according to the NSPCC, is when someone builds a relationship, trust, and emotional connection with a child or younger person so they can manipulate, exploit, and abuse them. In short, Veronica met her ex through a friend. They started hanging out together, which is the first red flag, because why is a near adult teenage boy hanging out with 12-year-olds? And from there, a relationship was built. They bonded enough for Veronica to fall for him. So yeah. Grooming, not grooming, it doesn't matter. The relationship was inappropriate. It's also worth noting that in the description of this TikTok, Veronica writes towards the end, "My ex isn't a good person. He hasn't seen his kids since the divorce, never paid me child support, and ended up on the offender list within 2 years of me leaving him." Which brings me to Anora's community post. In a messed up gotcha moment, Anora outs that Veronica's ex-husband, the father of her eldest 2 children, is a S-offender. Not just from when he got Veronica pregnant at 13/14, but again when he was 26. And Onora, in her limited wisdom, has decided that this must mean that because Veronica talks about how she became a mother at 14, that she must support SA. The thing is, Veronica doesn't really talk about her ex all that much. She doesn't really name him. She only very recently started to use photos of him that she found at her mother's house in her hoarder vlog.
Oh, wow. A picture of my ex and me and Audrey.
And the kids do not have a relationship with him or his parents, according to a Facebook post that her daughter Victoria made. Veronica's ex is just a character in her personal history, a person from a time when her life wasn't good. In that same description, she also wrote, "I had severe mental health issues and should have been locked up for my own safety, but instead I was running the streets and causing problems." In other words, it was a traumatic time for her, even before she got pregnant. Things weren't good. She claims to have healed since then, and that is probably partially true, but in my opinion, part of the reason she keeps retelling this story over and over and over isn't just to stimulate the algorithm and to profit off of her kids. That's part of it, but that's not the only reason. I think it's a way for her to process all of the trauma that she hasn't healed from. Because had she actually properly healed from this, she would be able to separate herself from 12 to 14-year-old Veronica and recognize her as a child, the same age as her daughter Dee, and be able to see, whoa, not appropriate. But she's not there yet because she's not done healing. She's still working through this trauma. And so it's both remarkable to me and also completely unsurprising that Anora would not understand this at all and would just jump straight to victim blaming Veronica because, of course, that empathy, who's she? As though Anora doesn't have her own trauma, hasn't experienced abuse at all, and definitely wasn't a mother at a young age. I mean, as far as I know, Onora wasn't a teen mother, but she was still pretty young compared to someone like me who became a mother in my early 30s. Onora's like 42, 43. She's, you know what I mean? Her kids are practically grown. So it doesn't make sense to me. It does, but it doesn't. It does in that what I know of Anora now, it totally makes sense. But what I know of Anora, you would think that she would have a little bit more understanding, a little bit more empathy. You'd think. I also find it super hypocritical because less than a year ago, Anora was backing the bio dad of the Doherty Dozen kinship kids, and then quietly dropped that when it was revealed that he's also a registered S offender, jumping instead to the bio mom, a recovering addict who came out of nowhere claiming to want to get her babies back and that there was this big issue. And Anora either didn't know or chose to ignore that on the bio mom's very public social media, she had outed a former friend for taking issue with the fact that she had allowed her kids to stay with their bio dad, despite knowing that he was an S offender. We just kind of glossed over that part. Because Anora and her community were falling over themselves to support the bio mom, a woman who I would argue isn't really that different from Veronica in a lot of ways. They're not wealthy people. They have a bunch of stuff they're working through, and it could be argued neither are maybe great or even fit moms. The only difference here is that Veronica is a mommy vlogger. And don't get me wrong, I do think that Veronica is a problematic mommy vlogger. Oh, honey, believe me, I do. And I think that the content that she uploads reasonably causes concern, legitimate concern. I'm not arguing with that. Not at all. But calling attention to her ex's criminal record and then weaponizing it against her does nothing except to inflict harm onto Veronica and onto her children, which, given the community that Anora has fostered, frankly isn't surprising, but it's fucked up. It's not necessary. What is the goal here of outing this information? Veronica never hid it. She just chooses not to go into detail every single frickin' time. So how does this help her? The answer is it doesn't, and there is nothing here. There's nothing that Anora's doing that is meant to help. It's just to be a bitch. And listen, if you want to do bitchy, shitty things, do them. Just don't pretend. Don't hide behind this moral cause that you keep holding up in front of you, saying that this is about the kids, this is about mommy vloggers, getting mommy vloggers off the, or whatever, or calling out bad parents. Because nothing in this community post, nothing in it does anything towards any of those things. It's just to be a dick. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm hoping to not talk about Anora for a while and focus on all the other stuff I need to do. Unfortunately, I don't think Anora is ever going to not be like this. She's not going to change. She's a lost cause. And yeah. Anyway, that's it for me. I want to thank everyone for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!